What's up guys? My name is Christina, if you don't already know, and I love traveling. I am a digital nomad, and this video is for all my teachers out there who want to, or my potential teachers who want to become online teachers. So if you're currently interested in becoming an online teacher or you want to learn more information, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can send me an email. I'll leave my email below for you guys. So today I want to get into tips for passing your mock lesson. So hopefully this simplifies things for you guys. Let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first term that you guys should familiarize yourself with is TPR. What is TPR? TPR stands for Total Physical Response. So TPR is almost like a form of sign language. Think of what you do when you're playing the game charades. You are miming out, you're acting out vocabulary words. It's basically used as a tool to help the student understand what the meaning of certain vocabulary words are. So for example, if you were gonna say, circle the apple, instead of saying, circle the apple, you can say, circle the apple. It becomes a lot clearer for the student who is obviously learning English for the first time that they need to circle something on the screen. So we can use TPR to help guide the student when we want them to repeat something, or when we want to signal to them that we are listening and we're waiting for a response from them. So for example, if I wanted the student to repeat the word apple, I would say apple. And then I would put my hand up to my ear like this, and then basically wait for a response from them. So they know that they need to respond to me. Those are the signals that I use the most throughout the lesson because I'm constantly wanting the student to repeat, right? Because we want the student to speak as much as possible through the lesson. I would definitely make sure that you are using that in your interview. For any sentence that you say, for the most part, you want to use TPR. So for example, if I'm introducing myself to the student, I'm saying, hello, how are you? Or if I want the student to tell me what they're seeing on the screen, what do you see? So for the intro, I might say something like this. Hello, my name, as though I have a name tag on, or I'll point to my whiteboard and I'll say, my name is Teacher Tina. What is your name? Emma? Hello, Emma. And then I might say something like, how are you? Some of them, they may know what that means. If they're struggling or they're unsure about how to respond, I would say, I'm happy. And then I usually do something like this when I want them to respond. I'm happy. This shows them that they should repeat it. I'm happy. And then I show them, okay, I'm waiting for a response from you. I don't say anything, I'm just silent. And I wait about 3 seconds, maybe 4. Give them time to think. Another thing that's very important when you are in the middle of your interview is that you want to speak slowly. And think about it whether you were learning another language. If you were learning Spanish or Mandarin, right? Do you want somebody to say, hey, how are you? My name is Christina. What's your name? That's too fast, right? You want to speak slowly. It almost seems a little bit unnatural when you're first doing it. It may seem like, oh my gosh, I'm really slowing it down, but it's good for them. They can hear every syllable, right? Hello, my name is, you want to talk at that pace. That's pretty good. So they're not confused. It's not all blurred together. Another tip that I have for you guys is use simple language. So if you get feedback that says, you were using too much incidental language, that basically means that you are explaining too much. Remember, these kids, they can't speak English. They're learning how to speak English, right? So if you want to teach them the letter A, you're not going to say, hey, today we're going to learn about the letter A. You're going to just make it very simple. There's going to be an A on the screen, and you'll say, A. And they know from that right away that they need to repeat the letter A. A. And then you listen. You don't have to say, repeat the letter A. Now here's the tricky part. When you're using this simple language, it could be a little tough because in trying to kind of use less words, they're more inclined to use a sentence that's not grammatically correct. So you don't want to do that. That's a big no-no. You want to make sure that you are using less words, but that your sentences are still grammatically correct. So for example, if you want the student to circle the ball on the screen, you don't want to say circle ball. Yes, that's using simple language, but again, it's not grammatically correct. You would say circle the ball. So another tip I have for you is to make sure that you make corrections throughout the lesson. So you want to do this in a way where the student still feels successful, but you want to make sure that they're still making the right pronunciation or that their sentences are still grammatically correct. So this is an example of how to gently correct them. So say your student says, I see kite. You want to say, I see a kite. Then wait for them to repeat it. And you may want to repeat it a second time. So you're gently encouraging them. You don't want to make them nervous to make a mistake. You want to keep the whole lesson pleasant. You want to make sure that they're having a positive experience and that they're having fun along the way. But of course, we want to teach them, right? We want to make sure to correct them, but also at the same time, encourage them. I hope that makes sense. Okay guys, the other tip I have for you is to make sure that you're energetic. Make sure that you're happy, that you're positive, that you make the class fun for the student. Be yourself. But just make sure that you remember that you're trying to create a positive experience for someone learning a second language. It can be very difficult and intimidating for some students, so make sure that they are having a positive experience along the way. And the way that they'll have that is by you just being a positive person, you encouraging them throughout. You can give them high fives, you can give them a thumbs up. Just, a smile goes a long way. You don't want to be, waking up in the morning, or if you're, depends on when you're teaching, but you don't want to be like yawning and just like super drained. Just make sure you get a good night's sleep and that you are ready and energetic for your students. Okay guys, another tip I have for you is to make sure that the student is speaking more than you're speaking. The way that these platforms usually refer to this is by making sure that there's a lot of student output. That's what they call it. Basically, most of the platforms want to make sure that the student is speaking 70% of the time and you're speaking 30% of the time. So you're always making sure to ask the student questions that elicits a response from them. So it should be 70% student output and 30% teacher output. Okay, so what are some other things that you need to pass your mock class? You need to use props. So one of the things I love that has multiple purposes is my whiteboard. This was super cheap. It actually came in a pack of 6. I can link it below for you guys. And it's super simple. I can teach letters with this. I can use this marker over here. I can also use it as a way to give the student rewards. So what do I mean? I can, they may have a smiley face, and of course you have to reward the student throughout. You want to have your own reward system. So one of the things I do, and I use all the time, is I actually just draw a smiley face and I tell them, when you do a good job, you get a tooth, and I draw a tooth for them. So it's very versatile. I even use it for my to-do lists. So when I'm done with class and I want to get organized throughout the day, I just literally put a list of to-dos there. Keeps me very productive, and honestly it's one of my favorite. It's environmentally friendly too. You're not using any papers. I mean, if you're the type of person who likes to write things down, of course you can use a to-do list on your computer. But yeah, I really like to write things down sometimes, and just keeps things top of mind for me. So definitely recommend that whiteboard. It's one of my favorite props. What else are you gonna need? You're gonna need some headphones. These are my headphones, very, very basic. I can link down below, the links to some headphones that you guys can get, and they're really cheap. It's like 20-25 bucks. Other props you can use, guys, are flashcards. You can use puppets. Also, I encourage you guys to use things that you have around the house. Any like toys or stuffed animals, that works. If you have a real soccer ball, you can use a real soccer ball as a prop. If you have kids, even better, right? Because they have toys, so most of the time you can just use their toys. But if you don't have kids, you can also get an app, and this is good for my travelers out there, for the ones that are definitely planning on teaching and being on the move and traveling around the world. Stars to Apples is an app that I actually heard about. One of my good friends uses it, and she uses Stars to Apples as a prop. So that way you don't have to go crazy, because if you're thinking I'm gonna be traveling, how am I gonna bring all this different stuff with me, right? That way you don't have to think about actually bringing all these different props with you while you're traveling. You just actually have an app, it's on your phone. I'll link the icon below so you know what it looks like, and essentially it will have pictures already of feet and of legs and a head. I'm saying body parts because there's a lesson on body parts, but they have fruit and all these different pictures, so you don't really have to worry about investing in buying props. Guys, I I did not invest too much money in props. I literally bought a couple of basic things. You do want to make sure that you're using it within the interview because you actually do get points for using props. So that's something that you need to pass the interview, but it definitely doesn't require too much money. The other thing you want for the interview is to have good lighting, and you want to have an educational background. A map of the United States would count if you have it in your background. And you also want to make sure that when you are actually doing your interview, that you're in a quiet space, that everybody around you knows not to interrupt you, that you're working, and you want the background to be a solid wall. So of course, like I said, you want to put a map on that wall or some sort of educational background, but you do want to have a solid wall. You don't want it to be like an open room. That's the expectation when you're doing the interview, that it kind of mirrors a classroom. So if you have like an open background, you don't want to have like people walking behind you and like other things happening behind you, to distract the students. So I will link all the props that I use below and more. That way you guys don't have to go searching on Amazon. You don't have to, spend any more time on this at all. I make it super simple for you. I'm gonna leave it in the description below for you guys to literally just click on. Okay, so another tip I have for you guys is using repetition. So when you're teaching the letter A, for example, I would point here, the student sees it, and say, A, and then I would wait for a response. Good. A, and wait for a response. Good job. And then using my TPR, I would say, big A, and then repeat it a second time, big A, and wait for them to respond. And then show small a, and I would say small a, and wait for them to give you a response. When they give you a response, then you repeat it again, small a. See, so it's okay to repeat it. I would say repeat it at least twice. That way it really sinks in with the student, and they're actually learning as you go along. But I would say also keep in mind pacing. So essentially make sure that you're not spending too much time on any one slide, because then you're not gonna be able to get through the actual lesson. So when you're actually teaching a real lesson, it's 25 minutes long, and usually they're about, give or take, 25 slides. So usually you wanna spend about a minute on each slide. But it does depend on the lesson. So it's just kind of like an estimate. It depends. Some lessons will have a lot less slides. So just kind of keep that number in the back of your head, like a minute or so for each slide. Okay, so another tip I have for you guys is modeling. And the way that modeling works is I do, we do, you do. And I'll explain what that means. So I do. So when you're first introducing a word or a letter to a student, you want to make sure that you model for them what exactly needs to be done, what exactly you're expecting from them. So for example, if you were teaching them the word kite, you would maybe circle kite on the screen on your PowerPoint, and you would say, or maybe you would have an actual prop to show them, or maybe you would show TPR, kite. And then you would say, kite. And then you would wait to hear them say the word kite, and then you would do it in a ping pong fashion. You want to make sure you repeat it twice. So you want to make sure that you hear them repeating the word twice, and you want to do it in, they call it a ping pong fashion. So you would literally say kite, wait for the response, a couple of seconds, then say kite again, and wait for the response from the student. So that's an example of I do. Then the next step in modeling is we do. So after you actually introduce the word kite to them, you might say, what do you see? And then wait for a response from them. And of course, you're making sure to support them if needed. If they forget, what the word is or how to pronounce it, you are providing that support. And then the final stage is you do. Eventually we want to get it to the point where students have learned the word and they're able to, identify maybe a picture of the word on their own. So there may be an activity on the slide where they're applying the knowledge that they just learned, and they're going to be identifying either that vocabulary word or that picture. Maybe they have sort of activity where they have to drag and drop the vocabulary word, or they have to draw a line. Of course, there's no problem for you to model, exactly what they need to do. You can model, and say, draw a line, or you can say, drag and drop. But then you do want to give the students some space to think and see if they can apply what they just learned. If they're struggling, it's totally fine to give them a gentle reminder. And that's pretty much it. That's what you need to know for your mock class. So I definitely encourage you guys to, take some time to let that information sink in. Practice it in the classroom because it is a little bit different when you're actually doing it. It's definitely possible to learn how to do, but it does take a little bit of practice. So just make sure that you are setting yourself up for success by getting familiar with the actual classroom, holding up your props while you're teaching something, get used to using the tools within the actual platform that you're using so you're not confused when you're actually teaching. Make sure you get comfortable with the pacing. Give yourself maybe a day, maybe two, just kind of get comfortable. Practice through a couple times and then don't wait. Just schedule your interview and just do it. Don't overthink it and don't take too long to take action because though it is a learning curve and though you do need to practice, it's not rocket science, right? You definitely can do it. Just take action and get it done. And think of it this way, these platforms, they're looking for teachers. They want to hire native English speakers. So as long as you kind of review it and you have a good understanding of what they're expecting, then for the most part, you should be in really good shape. Okay guys, I don't want to ramble on for too long, but I do want to say good luck. You probably don't even need it. Make sure to take action. You can do it. Okay, bye.